Shalom, shalom, shalom. All praise is due to Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the creator of heaven and earth. Okay, so this is going to be the third and final installment of the El Harish stone or the El Harish inscription that could further validate and prove that there was in fact an Exodus, and it could also prove that our ancestors, the Israelites, were also in captivity in the land of ancient Egypt. And who are the Israelites? Negroes scattered throughout North, South, Central America, who has a ydna genetic marker e1b1a. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article. And it says Decoding the El Harish Stone Block Entry Part 3. Okay. And it says, I've been attempting to decipher the El Harish Naos, i.e. shrine. This is the third entry. The Naos is a granite stone weighted 2 tons that have stood in the Holy of Holies of an Egyptian temple. Some scholars have claimed, and I agree, that what we have here is a story of the biblical Exodus. From an Egyptian point of view, the inscription has never been systematically deciphered until now. Okay, so even the scholars also agree that this piece of artifact, of ancient artifact, tells you a complete analysis or a small analysis of the story of the biblical Exodus. I mean, the evidence is right there. Okay, at the end of the day, all the artifacts, the archaeology, the anthropology that could further substantiate and validate the premises of the scriptures is right there for you to find. And especially Israelites being in captivity and in bondage in Egypt. So I'm going to continue on. And it says, before I continue with part 3, I want to address the main objections to this exercise. Until now, scholars and naysayers have dismayed this archaeological proof for the biblical Exodus. And I'm not surprised with that because they have their own personal agendas. And their own personal agendas is simply because they definitely want to go out of their way to dismiss the scriptures. It's that simple. Because the stone dates from the 2nd century BCE. How could this stone be telling the story of the biblical Exodus? The naysayers argue when the biblical Exodus happened somewhere between 1500 and 12, 1270 BCE, and the stone is dated at 200 BCE, meaning there is some 1300 years between the stone and the Exodus. To mine, this is nonsensical objection. And I'm aiming to, at the end of the day, simply this: you're always going to have oppositions. You're always going to have naysayers and gangsters amongst the quote unquote so called scholar community who are going to be totally against any type of artifacts that can substantiate the validity of the Bible. It's that simple. My edition of the Bible was published in 2012, but it would be silly for a future archaeologist to summarize that it was written in 2012. Observant Jews believe that the Torah, i.e. the first 5 books, were written at the time of the Exodus, some 3,500 years ago. For their part, scholars argue that it was written after the Babylonian exile of the Jewish people. Let me tell you something, man. All these other niggas in the Kemetic community who come out with all these different falsehoods and try to dismiss the scriptures, they get the information from these other scholars. They get these information from the scholars who totally reject the validity of the Bible. So I just wanted to put this out there. Some 2,500 years ago, in an event, though my edition of the Bible was maybe a couple of years old, the story that's depicted in it is at least 25 years old. When it comes to the Christian Bible, scholars identify the earliest writings with Paul's letters, First Thessalonians and Galatians, estimated to have been written around 50 CE, i.e. almost 2,000 years ago. Again, the moral of the story is something it may be published today, but it may have been originally recorded thousands of years earlier. The same goes for the El Harish granite. Typically, Egyptian chronology is calculated based on the minute those. Okay, the text was written in the 3rd century BCE, around 250 BCE. Not Coincidentally, the Septuagint, i.e. the Greek version of the Hebrew Bible, also dates to the period, as does the Al-Harish granite. Interesting. What does all this mean? While all these stories dated the same period in Egyptian history, does it mean that all these stories originated in the 3rd century BCE, Ptolemaic period Egyptian history? No. It simply means that something happened during the Ptolemaic period to get the rulers of Egypt to commission the writings down of their history. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue on. What happened? The answer is simple. This period represented the liberation from foreign Persian rulers until 332 BCE. The Persian ruled Egypt. After this, Alexander the Great and a descendant of one of his generals, Ptolemy, ruled the country during the Persian rule. The conquerors tried to obliterate Egyptian history. As a result, during the Ptolemaic period that followed Persian rule, the new rulers of Egypt commissioned a recording of their ancient history so that it would never be lost. It was a result of this policy that Manetho wrote his Egyptian history. The Hebrew Bible was translated, and the Egyptian version of the Exodus, of the biblical Exodus, was recorded on the granite stone where in Al Harish. Put differently, all of those who have dismissed the Al-Harish stone on the grounds that it is written in the 3rd century BCE would made a terrible mistake. Have you ever? Here you have hieroglyphics, a 2,200 years old version of the Passover story from the Egyptian point of view, and you ignore it. It's time for the evidence to be examined. Back to our analysis. It says we left the story of when Pharaoh, known by his divine name Shu, regrouped his army and dedicated a temple to the Egyptian gods before resuming hostilities with the Anu, who are Semitic people from the area of Israel. I mean, this is what they call us. They call us the Amur people. The Egyptians call us the Amur people. We have identified Shu with Pharaoh Kamos. Line 18 states that Kamos' special temple had a holy area that no one could enter except Kamos, and it became a sacred place at Nebs. Its southern side represented the face of Pierit. Neither gods nor goddesses nor men nor animals were allowed to enter the sacred precinct to learn 18 its mysteries. The pharaoh's privilege of entering the holy areas was granted at the time of Ra, who built a great wall around the temple measuring cubits on its side, 19, 20 cubits high and 50 cubits thick. As for the sacred lake of Anibs, it was 20 cubits. Shu, aka Pharaoh Kamos, commissioned itself at the time of His Majesty Ra. Neither gods, nor goddesses, nor men, nor animals had seen anything like it. They did not comprehend the meaning of its dimension, which were 190 cubits in length and 110 in width. The walls were 20 cubits, 22 in height, and 50 cubits in thickness. This temple was different from all other temples. Its plans were mysterious. Its meaning was different from all the other temples. Its plans were mysterious, and its meaning a secret. Then came His Majesty Shu, and was enthroned at Nebs, as sure as the sky is fixed. The secret ritual of the temple proceeded. Now His Majesty Shu was enthroned at Nebs during the season of Aket. Okay, he was declared king of the gods at Nebs when he formally ascended the throne of Harkemis. Now we see here is nothing less than what the prelude to the Exodus in the north. The biblical Goshen, we have the so-called Hyksos, i.e. a Semitic people that the Egyptians call the Enu in the south. We have the Egyptians' indigenous rulers mounting a campaign to retake the north. The first leader, Pharaoh Sennacherib II, falls in battle. His son Kamos regroups a place called Agnes, i.e. the place of Sycamore, dedicated a temple reminiscent of the biblical tabernacle, and is elevated to his father's throne prior to when engaging with the Northerners. It is very, very a moment that creates the political and historical windows for Moses to confront Pharaoh Kamos with the immortal line, "So declared the Lord, let my people go." Okay, and the next blog and major feature for the biblical Exodus, it explicitly mentioned this non-biblical inscription. As you can see, the evidence is crystal clear. The evidence is right in front of you. The El Harish stone is also known as the monolith of El Harish, is another piece of evidence to prove the biblical Exodus, another piece of evidence that could further validate the validity of the Bible and the Holy Scriptures. But as you can see, at the end of the day, it's simply this. All this information that's being brought out, and all the information I'm currently bringing right now, is only for one small group of people, and it's only for the remnant of Israel. Okay, at the end of the day, the creator of heaven, Yahweh, he's only concerned with the remnant. He doesn't care about the majority of our people. The majority of our people are going to be fit for destructions and death and calamities. So I'm going to read these three quick precepts. I'm going to read these three quick precepts or scriptures real quick. And this is Isaiah chapter 1, verse 9. I'm going to see if I can highlight those on the bottom over here. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 9. And it says, "Except Yahweh of hosts had left unto us a remnant," or a very small remnant, a remnant. The key word there is remnant. We should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah. So the key word there is a remnant that the creator of heaven is only dealing with amongst the house of Israel. And like I said before, if your ydna genetic marker is e1b1a and your ancestors came over here on cargo slave ships, then you are an Israelite. And it doesn't matter what you look like. So you can have the phenostructure or the phenotype of a white man, you can have the phenostructure or the phenotype of a Hamite, of a so-called African, you have the phenostructure, the phenotype of a Chinese, of a Japanese, of a Filipinos, of a Thai, of a Hispanic, and so on and so forth, as long as your genetic marker can be traced back or to an Israelite, which is the e1b1a, and your ancestors came to call a slave ship, then you are an Israelite. Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 3 says, "And I will gather who? The remnant again, the remnant of who? Of Israel." So the Most High is not dealing with the majority of our people, "of my flock out of all the countries where I have driven them, and I will bring them again into their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase." Romans chapter 9, verse 27 says, Isaiah also cried concerning who? Israel. "Though the number of the children of Israel be as what? As the sand of the sea, a remnant," and again, there goes the remnant again, "shall be saved." So whenever you start to see these niggas being put to death on a day-to-day basis, whether they being put to death at the hands of the cops, whether they being put to death just simultaneously among themselves, at the end of the day, it's the Most High judging them. Most High is not concerned about the masses of Israel. He's only concerned about the Israelites who want to repent and keep his laws, statutes, and commandments. So back to the fact of the matter, if these niggas from the house of consciousness, whether it's side nigga, polite, these Kemetic niggas, Moorish niggas, Moorish members from the Moorish Science Temple of America, or whether it's a member of the Nation of Islam, or the Black conscious or unconscious movement, if they don't want to get this information, so be it. They're going to be destroyed. They're going to be severely judged. Good riddance. At the end of the day, the creator is only dealing with the remnant. And these videos on my channel are only for who? For the remnant, only the sincere brothers who want to learn. So I'm going to end this video presentation right now. And with that, I'm going to say shalom, and I'm going to see you guys on the next video.